Gospel according to Mark. Jesus and his disciples left from there and began a journey through Galilee, but he did not wish anyone to know about it. He was teaching his disciples and telling them, "The Son of Man is to be handed over to men, and they will kill him. And 3 days after his death, the Son of Man will rise." But they did not understand the saying, and they were afraid to question him. They came to Capernaum, and at once inside the house, he began to ask them, "What were you arguing about on the way?" But they remained silent. They had been discussing among themselves on the way who was the greatest. Then he sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "If anyone wishes to be first, then he shall be last of all and servant to all." Taking a child, he placed it in their midst, and putting his arms around it, he said to them, "Whoever receives one child such as this in my name receives me. And whoever receives me receives not me, but the one who sent me." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Whoever wishes to be the greatest among you must be the least, and the servant to all. We hear that in the Gospel. We hear about this thing called a servant. But what is a servant? I can tell you what a servant is at first. A servant is not somebody who needs to control the situation. They're not somebody who needs to run in there and solve the problems. A servant is not somebody who is telling everybody else what to do while they stand back. A servant knows his master. Christ is our master. We are Christians. We are followers of Christ. We are called to be his servants, every single one of us. We are called to follow in his footsteps, but realize he is the one who has called us forward. In another part of the Gospel, Jesus actually tells us to call ourselves unprofitable servants. Why unprofitable? Because it is Christ who has called us forward. We have done what we were obliged to do, and we are obliged to serve. Now, the word serve, we need to open that up a little bit more. Serve is not seeking our self-gratitude. This past week, I spent the week at a conference and retreat with other Catholic chaplains from New York State. And what was interesting at that conference is there wasn't any one of those people, not one of them, who said we don't get enough recognition. We're not treated well enough. We need to be honored more. Not one of them said that. And that is about how Christ expects it to be. We are doing our place, our job. We should not be looking for honors. We should not be looking for all these things out there. A good example would be Mother Teresa. I always love using Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa in 1979 received the Nobel Peace Prize. And she reluctantly actually went to receive that. And the reason why is because there was a great deal of money involved for her ministries. So when she went up there to receive it, one of the first things she said is, "I'm unworthy of this." That's the sign of a servant, by the way. I am unworthy. So she tells everyone she's unworthy, but she would receive it for the poor, for the outcast, for the destitute. Those are the ones who are worthy to receive it. She goes on to teach this secular group about Christ. She quotes Matthew 25. "When I was hungry, hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me to drink. When I was in prison, you visited me. When I was without shelter, you gave me a place to stay. When I was a stranger, you visited me. And she taught them from them. But she also taught that we oftentimes get confused in looking for Christ. We look for Christ in all the wrong places. Of course, we know we can find Christ in the Eucharist. But can we find Christ in each other? Can we find Christ in those who are unlovable? Those who are not perfect. In fact, those who have done some things that we may not agree with. We are all better than the worst thing we have ever done in our life. Even those people who are in prison, they are all better. We are all children of God, but do we see that? Or do we see a crime attached to them? Do we see poverty attached to them? Do we see the things that do not belong? A servant's heart is what we must have. No judgment, but only entering in. Like a child in the gospel, we must be able to look up at the people we serve. Not look down, but look up. That is the child's perspective. Always looking up to see the face of Christ. Mother Teresa told us directly, in that reception of her award, she says, we must always look to see the face of Christ in the other. There's a parable about a family. There's a mother and father, a young son, and a grandfather. And they're all sitting at the table, eating. Now the grandfather is getting older, and he's hard to understand, so they start ignoring him, because they don't really want to listen. Eventually, the grandfather drops the plate, and he breaks it. So they decide the solution is to make him a wooden bowl. So they get him a wooden bowl to eat out. Because if he drops it, it's not going to break. Then after a while, he eventually spills his milk and breaks the glass. They get him a tin cup. And eventually what happens is they put him in a corner by himself so they can enjoy their meal. Now pay attention. They are serving him. They are taking care of him. But they're missing one element, the heart. One day, the father sees the son out in the workshop with some wood, working on building something, and he asks the father, what are you building? I am building bowls for you and Mom, so when it's your turn, you can use them as well. You got that? I am building your bowls. That's what you taught me. You've taught me to relegate people to the corner and to make sure they have their bowls. Our heart is about taking care of other people, but taking care of them and looking up to them. Not putting them down. Not seeing what they can't do, but seeing who they are in Christ. We are called to see the face of Christ in all that we meet. That is our challenge, and that is the servant's heart.